Hi, how's everybody doing? Has anyone here ever encountered a film that, by rights, doesn't have anything wrong with it in particular, and yet it rubs you the wrong way completely and you end up absolutely hating it? Well, I just had that experience myself with The English Patient. Oh my gosh, this movie was absolutely terrible. I was shocked at how awful the viewing experience was. Let me put it this way. Out of all the Best Picture winners prior to it, the one that The English Patient resembles the most is Out of Africa, which, of course, is one of the worst Best Picture winners of all time. Only would you believe it, The English Patient might be even worse. Oh my dear lord. Why did this movie win the award over Fargo? Why? Is it because it was the 69th ceremony, so they wanted a movie that had something to do with sex? What's the reason? Look, I don't know what the overall consensus of this movie is online. For all I know, everybody adores this film except for me, so you know what? If you like this film, don't take me seriously. You probably see something in this movie that I missed. That's the thing with opinions. Everyone has their own. The same goes for experiences, and my personal experience watching this film was very negative. So please allow me to explain to you why The English Patient was most certainly not for me. The film was directed by Anthony Minghella, and it stars Ralph Fiennes, Juliette Binoche, Willem Dafoe, Kristen Scott Thomas, and Colin Firth. It tells the story of a man named Almasy, who was severely burned after his plane was shot down and caught in flames during World War II, leaving him a disfigured and mutilated mess. After a series of events, he finds himself under the care of a nurse called Hannah in an abandoned monastery, and for the rest of the film, he reveals through flashbacks the story of what happened to him, revolving around his love affair with a married woman named Catherine. That's the basic gist of the film, and honestly, there's nothing inherently wrong with the premise. At the beginning, I was intrigued to learn what happened to him, especially when a man played by Willem Dafoe arrives at the monastery who hints at a connection with the burned Almasy. But unfortunately, it doesn't take the film too long to completely fall off the rails and lose me on almost every level. First and foremost, the characters were dull, uninteresting, and in the case of Almasy and a few others, unlikable. This is a giant Achilles heel, because the emotional core of the film is almost entirely based on us caring about the love affair between Almasy and Catherine. If you don't care about that, then you just won't care about anything else that's going on. So naturally, I didn't care in the slightest. Not for Almasy, not for Catherine, and not for their romance. And why should I? The film didn't give me any reason to. Ralph Fiennes was uncharismatic, unpleasant, and overall just a very weak lead for a film. He's much more suited for playing side characters or nasty villains, not a leading man in a romance. At the beginning, he was interesting because he was mysterious and we didn't know anything about him. But the more we learned and the more that was revealed, the less interesting he became. Turns out he was just a boring pseudo-intellectual who keeps spouting nonsense and is obsessed with a woman so much that he's willing to wreck a marriage for her without any second thought. And as for said woman, Catherine, well, she's an adulteress. The whole film is about her cheating on her husband with some insipid Hungarian. I mean, I can see how some people could relate with their budding love affair if you don't care about the whole she's a married woman thing, but I'm not one of these people. The whole time I was thinking about the poor husband who was being cheated on. Not that I cared about him in any other way, mind you, he was also a very dull character, but it's just a basic principle of mine. I don't care how bad of a husband he is or isn't. Don't expect me to relate or care for a character who cheats on her spouse. It's not gonna happen. So that alone is enough to completely derail the film for me, but that's not its only problem. The other characters aren't that great either. I guess I cared a little more about Hannah than the rest of them, but even with her, as the film progressed, she herself entered a romance with this Indian dude, and very quickly she also lost my interest. At least Juliette Binoche's performance was good, I'll give her that. Aside from the characters, the story itself was convoluted and mundane. Let's put aside the problem with the fact that the film is told through flashbacks from Almasy's perspective, and yet there were a bunch of flashbacks where Almasy wasn't even present. Like, what's the deal with that? But in general, the flashbacks were a hindrance. I felt disconnected from what was going on, and the constant shifts between the past and the present really hurt my engagement with the film. I just don't like movies like this, because I feel detached from the characters. It's the same problem I had with Citizen Kane, an amazing movie that I respect, but didn't fully enjoy, because the structure of the film made me feel like I was being told a story about a person, instead of actually experiencing the story myself. The English Patient in general managed to tick a lot of boxes of what I don't enjoy in films. Heavy use of flashbacks? Check. A snail's pace period piece? Check. Longer than necessary runtime? Check. Unlikable, self-indulgent, and morally bankrupt protagonists? Check. Lame, tedious, and stuck-up dialogue? A checkaroonie. I just couldn't get into this film for the life of me, with only a few moments of interest spread thinly throughout. Only at the very end of the film, when it reaches its climax, does the film become consistently gripping. But by that time, the damage has already been done, and even though the scenes at the end were powerful in a vacuum, I was emotionally checked out long before that. So that's my take on The English Patient. Aside from the cinematography, the musical score, and some of the performances, which were good, I really don't have anything else positive to say about this movie. It's a film that starts alright and ends well, but everything in between is dead weight. With a cast of characters as dry as the desert they're in, The English Patient was an experience that will likely not stick long in the memory. The English Patient was so bad that it enters the bottom 10 for me, ever so slightly above Out of Africa. I know at the beginning I said it could be worse, but at the end of the day, it slightly edges it thanks to the sense of intrigue at the beginning and a few powerful scenes near the end. But overall, it was a massive letdown and the worst of the 90s so far. Up next is the 70th Best Picture winner, the former highest-grossing film of all time, the record-tying, Oscar-winning James Cameron juggernaut itself, Titanic. It's gonna be a big one. Check back again for the next video of DB Reviews Oscar Madness Marathon and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss a thing. Thank you all very much, and let the journey continue.